Did you kill Kristine Melton and Diane Ruiz?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
We, the jury, find by a vote of 9-3 that Wade Wilson should be sentenced to death.
You said he was talking crazy. What did you mean?
Crazy as far as, no, you don't understand, Josh, I killed people last night.
Wade Wilson, echoing Marvel's Deadpool, gained infamy for real-life atrocities in Cape Coral, Florida. Unlike the comic hero, his brutal crimes and lack of remorse earned him the nickname Deadpool Killer. This is the story of a double murderer whose heinous acts and cold demeanor sparked widespread outrage. Wade Wilson was born on May 20th, 1994, to teenage parents. His birth was met with mixed emotions as his mother struggled immensely with mental health and substance abuse issues.
How old were you when you found out you were going to be his father?
14 or 15.
How old was his mother at the time?
A year younger than me.
As a result, the Wilson family, who attended church with the teenage girl's family, felt compelled to take action. They decided to adopt Wade Wilson and provide him the love and support he desperately needed. According to his adopted family, Wade Wilson was a normal and well-adjusted young boy. As he grew up, his personality began to change. He started to become paranoid, avoiding social situations and often dabbling in drugs. Several instances were reported where Wade became convinced that someone was watching him through his blinds. When Wade was 13 years old, his adopted father had to make the difficult decision to call the authorities. Wade's father discovered substances in Wade's possession, which posed a significant threat to both himself and others. As a result, the Wilson family had no choice but to Baker Act him. The Baker Act is a Florida state law that provides a temporary involuntary commitment to a mental health facility for people who pose a threat to themselves or others. Despite his struggles, Wade received good grades in school and did well in athletics. He did sustain several head injuries from playing sports, several of which resulted in concussions. However, CT scans of Wade's brain never showed any skull fractures or bleeding. As Wade became a young adult, he started to form a criminal history. By 2010, he had been charged with at least 20 different crimes. In 2018, Wade began dating Kelly Matthews. At first, her relationship with Wade seemed relatively normal, but his true side began to emerge as time passed. 1 year into their relationship, Wade tied Kelly up, drove her to the Florida Keys, and assaulted her. According to Kelly, Wade's previous girlfriend has also confided in her trial that Wade had assaulted her, too. However, Wade's worst crimes were still to come. On October 7, 2019, the serene community of Cape Coral, Florida, was shattered by an event of unspeakable horror and tragedy. The man behind this nightmare was Wade Wilson, whose actions on that fateful day left an indelible mark on the lives of countless residents. A day earlier, on October 6th, 25-year-old Wade Wilson ventured to the Buddha Live, a lively bar in Fort Myers, with his girlfriend of 6 months, Melissa Montz. Arriving in Melissa's car, the evening began as a typical night out, filled with fun and laughter. However, the mood swiftly darkened. The couple clashed when Wade expressed his desire to visit someone's house, a suggestion Melissa firmly rejected. In a fit of anger, Wade stormed out of the bar. Melissa followed, only to witness Wade driving off in her car, abandoning her in the parking lot. Melissa quickly called her friend Amy, who came to her rescue and took her back to her place for the night. The next morning, Melissa discovered multiple missed calls from an unfamiliar number. When she returned the call, she was met with an enraged Wade on the other end of the line. Wade demanded to meet her, and given his history of substance abuse and violence, Melissa insisted on a public location for their encounter. They agreed on a spot in front of a business called Mila's Spa. When Wade arrived without Melissa's car, her suspicions grew. Confronting him about the missing vehicle, Melissa was met with aggression. Wade reached through the car window and violently dragged her by her dress.
Once he realizes that the threads were becoming I was getting away from him and he was still holding onto the dress, he opens the car door, obviously forgets to put it in park. The car starts to roll forward. He tackles me to the ground. The car grazes both of our legs and I'm pummeled to the ground.
Melissa eventually managed to escape Wade's grip after enduring a prolonged beating. She ran to a nearby business where she sought refuge. The police responded promptly to the domestic violence call.
Did you have occasion to become involved in an investigation involving a battery that occurred at a spa known as Mila's Spa involving a young lady by the name of Melissa Montz?
Yes, I did.
Melissa later reflected on the incident, her voice trembling as she recounted the terrifying details.
Violent, aggressive, tried to pull me in the car physically, and I resisted, got plank style so that he could not grab me into the vehicle.
When the officers arrived, Melissa informed them that Wade had fled the scene in a black Nissan Versa. She also revealed that she had lived with him for 2 months prior to his arrest and subsequent imprisonment, which lasted nearly 4 months.
You indicated that you noticed something inside?
Correct, there was blood on the passenger door.
So what did you do in response to when you saw blood on the interior of that vehicle?
We ended up Officer Armato broke the driver's side window of the vehicle, and due to the circumstances of us not being able to get in contact with the registered owner, we broke the window and popped the trunk, and we checked the trunk to make sure that there was nobody inside.
The number Wade used to call Melissa was traced to a woman named Kristine Melton, a name Melissa claimed she had never heard before. Officers proceeded to the address associated with the number, intending to arrest Wade for domestic violence. What they encountered at the residence was both disturbing and horrifying. When officers arrived at Kristine Melton's house, they found that police from another jurisdiction were already on the scene. The new officers quickly learned that Kristine Melton had been murdered in her home. She had been strangled to death while she slept. 35-year-old Kristine Melton was remembered as a woman who loved deeply and was known for her fierce protectiveness. A waitress by profession, she became the focus of a homicide investigation launched by Cape Coral authorities. Her car, a black Nissan Versa, was reported missing, adding another layer of urgency to the investigation. A close friend of Kristine's, her voice trembling and eyes glistening with tears, recounted the harrowing events of that dreaded night. It wasn't long before investigators made the connection, and Wade Wilson emerged as a suspect in Kristine Melton's murder. The same officer who had responded to Melissa's call was also tasked with confirming that the driver spotted by a witness in the restaurant parking lot was, in fact, Wade Wilson.
Wait, we're not going to have any problems. Just give me the keys to the car. No, 4-1. Gonna need a couple more minutes. Don't go anywhere. Hey.
Despite the officers' efforts to delay him while calling for backup, Wade managed to escape. He drove over 6 miles to Hancock, where he sought help from a man named Josh, asking for money for a bus ticket to leave town.
He was there trying to get a plane ticket or a bus ticket or whatever he could from me to leave town.
Wade also confessed to Josh that he had killed people, prompting a deeply unsettled Josh to contact the police.
You said he was talking crazy. What did you mean?
Crazy as far as, no, you don't understand, Josh, I killed people last night.
Despite the police's efforts, Wade managed to escape once more. Just a few hours later, Cape Coral police received another alarming report. 43-year-old Diane Ruiz, a mother of 2, was missing. Diane, known for her unwavering reliability, had never missed a shift in 5 years at the bar where she worked. Her absence for the morning shift was so out of character that the police were notified around 4 p.m. on the same day.
I actually did talk to her, not on the phone, but texted her that morning because it had started raining. I said, hey, do you want me to run over and pick you up?
You wish at that moment that you had insisted
Oh, I do. I actually made that schedule. I wish I would have never even have put her on.
As the search intensified, Diane's purse was eventually discovered along a roadside, but she was nowhere to be found. The only clues linking her to her disappearance were her purse and sightings of a black Nissan Versa, traveling along the road between 10 and 11 a.m. Later that night, a breakthrough emerged in the investigation, connecting the dots between the 3 cases that were increasingly showing disturbing similarities. Following the alert issued for Wade after the assault on Melissa, a detective reached out to Wade's biological father, Stephen Testaseca. The detective instructed Stephen to inform him if Wade made any contact. Later that night, Wade did indeed call his father.
Did he end up calling you later that evening?
Yes, ma'am.
And what did he tell you in that call that evening?
He just told me, he did something. There was 2 people gone that would not be back. He said, I'm a killer.
Stephen recounted that Wade confessed to strangling Kristine Melton and wrapping her body. Unable to fit her body in the trunk of her car, Wade had abandoned her remains. He then drove to the road where he lured Diane Ruiz into his car under the pretense of asking for directions.
He said he saw her walking down the street and stopped and asked her for directions.
With visible discomfort, Stephen recounted how Wade had murdered Diane Ruiz. Wade had asked her for directions to a nearby school and persuaded her to guide him by getting into the car. After Diane entered the car, Wade attempted to strangle her, leading to a violent struggle. Tragically, Wade succeeded in strangling and beating her. As Diane tried to flee, Wade ran her over. Observing that Diane was still alive, he got back into the car and deliberately ran her over more than 20 times. Wade later called Stephen and bragged about his actions, stating he wanted Diane to look like spaghetti.
What Mr. Wilson told law enforcement was that he had driven over her repeatedly and tried to make her look like spaghetti.
Disturbed by Wade's lack of remorse and the excitement in his voice, Stephen realized the gravity of the situation and decided to contact the police. Thanks to the crucial information provided by Stephen, the police were able to track down Wade. He had broken into the home of a married couple who were fortunately away in Ohio that morning. Several officers were dispatched to the scene, and after 30 minutes of peaceful negotiation and verbal commands, Wade emerged and was taken into custody. He was then transported to the Cape Coral Department for booking, before being transferred to the Lee County Jail. On October 15th, a report revealed that Wade, from the Lee County Jail, had called Melissa and confessed to the murders of Kristine Melton and Diane Ruiz. Ruiz's body was discovered 3 days later in a field, with vultures circling above. Melissa recounted to the news outlet, "He admitted over the phone that he murdered both those women. He strangled both of them. He said he just felt like it. He said he was on substances and it messed him up." Melissa had previously told the police that had Wade succeeded in dragging her into his car after the attack outside the spa, she wasn't sure she would have survived. As it turned out, Melissa's fears were well-founded. 6 weeks after the brutal murders, Wade Wilson was indicted. He faced charges of 2 counts of first-degree premeditated murder, as well as 1 count each of battery, grand theft of a motor vehicle, burglary of a dwelling, and petty theft. The day following his indictment, Wade's first court appearance occurred via remote video, with him participating from jail. Following his arrest, Wade was held without bail, and the judge overseeing his initial hearing denied him bond. Consequently, all of his subsequent hearings took place from jail. Wade's trial faced delays beyond the usual timeframe due to numerous trial motions. In September 2020, Wade and his cellmate plotted an escape from the Lee County Jail. Court revelations indicated that both men were allegedly affiliated with a white supremacist gang and planned their escape for around 1 a.m. Police were tipped off and discovered that their cell window had been tampered with. Despite the thwarted escape attempt, it took over 3 years before Wade Wilson finally faced a jury. During his extended time in prison before sentencing, Wade underwent several notable transformations, the most striking of which was the addition of numerous facial tattoos.
Has his appearance changed since the time that you met him?
Yes, he has a lot more tattoos on his face. He did not have any facial tattoos
May I
the night
approach
we
a
met
witness?
him.
Many of these tattoos featured Nazi symbols, reflecting a disturbing lack of remorse or repentance. Among the most alarming was a swastika inked on the side of his head, a symbol closely associated with Adolf Hitler and the Nazi regime. Due to Wade's drastic appearance change, his defense requested that the court permit the use of facial makeup and street clothing to conceal his tattoos, arguing that his appearance might prejudice the jury. Although the court granted this request, Wade chose to forego any cover-up. By June 2024, with the trial's delays no longer tolerated, Wade appeared in court with his tattoos fully visible and dressed in a suit. On June 10, 2024, a 12-person jury was seated, and the long-awaited trial of Wade Wilson for the murders of Kristine Melton and Diane Ruiz commenced. Opening statements were delivered, and multiple witnesses took the stand. Many testified that Wade had confessed to the murders, and with overwhelming evidence against him, the defense did not dispute the confessions. Instead, they presented an insanity plea, characterizing Wade as whacked out of his mind. The insanity plea was not approved, and after 2 arduous hours of deliberations and closed-door examinations, the jury reached a verdict on the charges against Wade.
8 or more jurors vote for the death penalty, your recommendation must be for the death penalty.
5 years after the brutal murders of Kristine Melton and Diane Ruiz, the jury found Wade Wilson guilty on all counts. 10 of the 12 jurors unanimously recommended the maximum punishment, the death penalty. Throughout the trial and the reading of the verdict, Wade displayed no emotion, save for a smirk directed at the judge. His demeanor made it clear that he felt no remorse for his heinous actions, and if he harbored any fear of facing the death penalty, he never showed it. In an emotional reflection on the trial, one juror shared the profound impact it had on her. She expressed her heartfelt sentiments, saying, "I think the hardest part every day was seeing the families there and seeing how they've been impacted by their losses. I only had to put a month into this. They had to put in 5 years, and they're never going to get their loved ones back. So I felt really honored to be able to give them some sort of justice." The families of the victims were reported to have wept and expressed visible relief upon learning that Wade Wilson was finally going to be held accountable for his actions. Initially scheduled for July 23, 2024, Wade's sentencing has been delayed until August 27, 2024. Judge Nicholas Thompson will preside over the sentencing hearing, where he will decide whether to uphold the jury's recommendation of the death penalty. This postponement has undoubtedly added to the emotional strain on the victims' families, who have been seeking closure for nearly 5 years since the brutal murders of Kristine Melton and Diane Ruiz. The additional month of waiting serves as a stark reminder of the often slow-moving wheels of justice, even in cases with seemingly clear-cut evidence and confessions.
Kristine Melton was my best friend and my cousin until October 7th, 2019.
My father unfortunately passed away when I was only 11 years old. My mother was all I had left.
She didn't think I gave her a kiss goodbye.
Had you?
Of course.
If the death sentence is confirmed on August 27th, Wade, now 30 years old, will be transferred to Florida's death row at Union Correctional Institution. One man's actions tragically altered countless lives, and in the case of Wade Wilson, he forced his biological father into profound emotional turmoil. Stephen Testaseca grappled with the decision of whether to report that his son, whom he had fathered in his early teens, was a murderer and a psychopath. As the community of Cape Coral, Florida, continues to heal from these shocking crimes, all eyes will be on the courthouse on August 27th, awaiting the final decision that will determine Wade Wilson's fate. Now let's turn our attention to these dangerous teens who have put their parents through a similar ordeal as Wade's father experienced.